Well, with me in the studio this hour, Eric Mandel is the founder and director of the Middle East Political Information Network and a senior editor for security at the Jerusalem Report. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, Eric. Good to see you again. And as we just heard, Daniel Hagari's comments are being seized upon already by Hamas. But what about the bigger picture? What does this tell us about the relationship between the IDF and the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, it's also the relationship between Israeli society and the IDF. The Israeli society is still strongly supportive of the IDF. They're not so supportive of the Netanyahu coalition. I think the Hamas has picked up on some differences there, but I think the question here is, are you going to destroy Hamas's ideology, jihadist, Salafist ideology? No, we didn't destroy ISIS ideology or al-Qaeda's ideology. What you're trying to do is destroy their infrastructure. What is not being told and what is not being honestly communicated is that there is going to need to be a fight in Gaza for years. There's going to be a guerrilla warfare and insurgency because there are literally thousands of terrorists sitting in tunnels. More than half of the tunnels have not been identified. And that is something I believe that the government should be communicating to the Israeli people to manage their expectations and also telling privately and maybe publicly to the Americans.
So there's a problem of communication, clearly, but the army says it goes deeper than that because they say that the Prime Minister refuses to make a decision about what's next for Gaza, something we heard from the American government as well several months ago. Will it be a military occupation? Will there be an international force? What is the alternative? Because the army says it's running out of targets. It's done its job. The question is what happens next? Why do you think the Prime Minister is unable to articulate any kind of vision?
I think part of it is politics. He's dealing with the threat of Ben-Gvir and Smotrich leaving, and then he will be out. Actually, he won't be out because until there's another election, he'll remain prime minister for a while. I think what needs to be understood is that this is going to go on for a while, and that everybody needs to just take a deep breath.
The war?
The war is going, and you're going to call it by another phase. So they won't have targets, but there's going to be plenty of incidents that are going to continue to happen. The government has made very clear it does not want to have a military occupation, but the IDF does need some type of day after understanding. Netanyahu is totally against a PA being involved or a reform PA being involved, and the Gulf states and the Egyptians don't want to be there as part of some force unless Israel is going to have the PA be there. And by the way, I'm not sure it's a great idea to have Gulf forces who will be in harm's way protecting Israelis. Their peoples are not going to be so happy about it. But the Prime Minister really cannot just keep saying we're going to defeat Hamas without giving some plan for the future.
Right, and of course, the IDF is made up of reservists, it's made up of young soldiers, people are becoming tired, people are getting exhausted, and of course, most importantly perhaps of all, is that there's still no agreement to get back the hostages. That appears to have died completely.
You know, it's funny, I was looking back over the last 8 months of the offers, and the offers of Hamas are less and less and less, and Hamas has a strategy. We saw that from the Wall Street Journal correspondence. You know, the deaths of our civilians are to our advantage, from Sinwar. And so getting back the hostages, I don't see them giving back all of the hostages. And again, we have no idea about how many hostages there are. The whole idea of the international community has not demanded that the Red Cross go and have proof of life and check the status, and nobody really seems to care about it. So, you know, and the families, the pressure here, this is one giant family here in Israel. Everybody is 1 degree of separation away from somebody that they know or a family member or a relative or friend who's involved. So you have just tremendous pressures with a government that's not trusted.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on Prime Minister Netanyahu again, he's not only under pressure from his own army now, from the protests in the streets, but also his relationship with President Biden seems to be becoming increasingly strained. He released that video earlier this week attacking the US or attacking the Biden administration for delaying weapons shipments. I mean, what did you make of the timing of that?
in tennis they call it an unforced error. This was a big unforced error, totally unnecessary. And the idea, that it really blindsided the administration, which doesn't have any love for the Netanyahu coalition anyhow. It really was just a really poor. The only thing I can think of was political, that he was pandering to Ben-Gvir and Smotrich to do that. But the relationship, this needs to be nurtured. Israel is dependent upon the United States for many things, not just in the short term, but certainly in the medium term and maybe the long term. And this is not the time during this to look for other fights. There are plenty of disagreements that will happen.
And of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu has been invited to speak before Congress next month. What are your expectations there?
It's funny, in 2014, Israel's defense minister asked me if Bibi should go, and I said no. I said the timing was bad. I'm not sure the timing is good here. I'm not exactly sure what the point is with such vitriol against Netanyahu that's there, and it really will bring out the political divide. I know Netanyahu thinks it's good and he can make his, and he's an incredibly articulate spokesman, but he's so tainted by Democrats in the administration. I'm just not sure that there are more positives than negatives of him going. Right,
because historically, when an Israeli prime minister goes to speak in the US, his favourability ratings tend to go up. But as you say, this is quite a different case. We might see this turn out very badly for the Prime Minister if it doesn't go right.
Well, I think there's already people who said they won't be there, but those are the usual Israel bashers that are there. But again, with the Biden administration so antagonistic, many Democrats who are considered supportive of Israel are going to have more of a muted response, say kind of the right things. I just don't really see the great upside here. I just see this as more divisive.
Okay, Eric Mandel for now. Thank you very much indeed.